What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to talk about EB-01. We need to talk about the Memorial Collection because something weird has happened with EB-01. You see, when this set came out, it was our first ever extra booster. And it was a little bit weird, and what a lot of people did was they looked at this set and they went, just buy singles. Because the thing was, if you look at the breakdown of EB-01, you look at it and you're like, well, there's only 3 leaders available, which means there's only 3 alternate art leaders. And for what it's worth, I think we can say this with some fair degree of certainty at this point. All the leaders are bad. Seriously, it's been out for months. None of the leaders are good. And there's only 8 super rares rather than the usual 10. There's only 1 secret rare rather than the usual 2. It's a smaller set. There's only actually 61 different cards in the set. It's a smaller set. There's fewer hits. The leaders aren't particularly good. And it is a set that a lot of the talk at the release of the set was, yeah, just buy singles. Maybe buy like 1 box. But then just focus on singles. It's not a big set in that regard. And honestly, at the time, that was not terrible thinking from everybody. It was a smaller set with fewer hits. And it is a set that didn't have that much in it that people were desperate for. But you see, there's been a little bit of a knock-on effect. Because as you may have noticed in a bunch of videos I've been making recently, whenever I tell you about good decks, I seem to keep bringing up cards from EB-01. There are actually a bunch of very good cards in EB-01. And what's happened is that we're actually seeing a lot of these cards now start spiking up in price. We are seeing a general rule of the higher end cards going up in price quite significantly. And that is very, very interesting to me. The card which I still need to pick up from the set is the alternate art Kyros, the leader. The good news is that's still like a $15 card. And I know it looks like it spiked up on the graph, but it's gone from like $13.50 to $16. It's only gone up by a couple bucks. Let's not go silly here. But EB-01 as a whole, and you know, I've started having a look around at booster box prices and going, well, all right. What's going on with booster boxes? And they're out there, they're available, but they're becoming a little bit more awkward to get hold of. And I'm just telling you right now, EB-01, I mean, it's already spiking. This isn't about to spike like I told you in Romance Dawn the other day. It's already happening with the top level cards. But, you know, go onto eBay right now. Try and buy a booster box of EB-01. You're going to end up paying a few quid for it. You know, look at these 3 solds in a row. 1 for 180 from the UK, 1 for 250, 1 for 200. EB-01 is becoming very difficult to find. Although, as a side note, as always, if you go to like the official One Piece TCG stores in the UK, they do tend to have stock of this. I'm not saying they've all got stock at all times, but I'm saying recently they've had a bunch of stock. It's still out there. It's not completely sold out or anything along those lines. I'm not saying it's sold out. At least not everywhere, because it's not. But I am saying that it's becoming hard to find in some places. Generally speaking, when the booster box price is spiking on eBay, what that really means is that it's not available everywhere. Which means some places have to go to eBay, and that's what spikes it up. It doesn't necessarily mean it's out of stock everywhere. And like I've said, it's been a couple of weeks, but the last time we had a big stock update from the official stores in the UK, EB-01 wasn't actually available in Camden, but it was available in Brighton and at the Metro Centre in Gateshead up in the north. So again, not saying it's sold out everywhere, not saying it's readily available. The reality is booster boxes are somewhere in between. They're still out there. I'm pretty sure if I wanted to, I could go and find a booster box today in the UK. I've generally got a few leads on this kind of stuff, but it's becoming more difficult to find. So let's have a look at the good cards and let's see what's doing it. And the thing is, I told you there was only 1 secret rare in the set, and that's true, but it's Bon Clay Bentham. Not only is it Bon Clay Bentham, but the alternate art has Nami. It's Boncray Bentham as Nami, and that has always been a popular card. Let's set it to 6 months. Let's see what's happened to the alternate art of that over the past 6 months. Well, it's gone up to $110. Went as low as 65, it's up to 110. And the thing is, it's a very playable card. And that's kind of a problem when we have a set which is getting harder to find. On play, you add a Don card from your Don deck active, so it's basically a free cost. And when attacking, you can choose one of your opponent's characters, and this character's base power becomes the same as a selected character's power. So then you add one Don on, and you're like guaranteed to outpower anything. It's a cool card. Sees play in purple decks. It's a card that sees a bunch of play. And the alternate art has Nami artwork in a set which I'm not sure exactly what the sales were like, but it's certainly becoming harder to find now. And this is the issue when, as everybody says, just go and buy singles. Somebody out there needs to be opening the boxes. This is becoming a very sought-after card. An alternate art secret rare for 140, that is unusual, frankly. That is generally not what we tend to see. Expect this to keep happening. And actually, the regular version of this, same thing's happening. Doesn't have the awesome Nami artwork, but it's still playable. It's a secret rare. It's a set that's getting harder to find. It's a card that's gone from like $25 up to $55. $55 for a regular secret rare is significant. More than doubling price in the space of 6 months is significant. And this is what I'm telling you. EB-01 is starting to become that set. And it's not every card. I showed you Kyros. It's one of my favourite alternate art leaders. I adore it. I am a sucker for the Dressrosa arc, which helps to explain that. It's not every card, but the good cards, the playable cards, this is what's happening. The one that makes me a little bit sad, Laboon. Hands down favourite card in the set. I love Laboon. I love Soso's artwork. I love this art. I actually pulled this card from one, like the only box I opened of EB-01, which makes me delighted because I love this card. But am I really going to pay $56 for it? The honest answer is maybe. It is absolutely stunning. And partly everybody loves Laboon, and partly it's Soso artwork, which is lovely. But the reason I love it is not really the reason why it's going up in price like that. The reason why it's going up in price like that is because it's a playable card. It's an alternate art of a playable card. And like I keep telling you, it's a set which is becoming a lot less available. So if we have a look at the boon, activate main, rest this character, give one of your opponent's characters -4 cost during the turn. And at 5k, it's not terrible for attacking, but -4 cost, that is exactly the kind of thing the black decks want to do. This is a very big deal. Now, I didn't pull it in English, but I did pull it from a Japanese box, the alternate art Brook. Now, this is a weird one because this in the past 6 months has been as low as 34 and as high as, well, 55. It's now sitting at about 48, which is only like $12 more than it was 6 months ago. But it's still going up. This one is just less spiking up like all the others and more flopping around all over the place. But it's still going up. And we got Brook here on play and when attacking. Give up to one of your opponent's characters -1 cost for the turn. And then KO a 0 cost character. It's another one of these which sees play, has potential. And it's an alternate art in a set which is becoming a pain to find. Add that all up together and you find yourself with an expensive card. Couple others this is happening to Shirahoshi. Well, it never has any power, but Shirahoshi gets a lot of good cards. And this one was fun because it was flicking around like $14 for ages and then jumped up to 40. This is a spike. Like, don't get me wrong, all the cards I'm showing you here are going up, but this is a case of cheap, 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 go. And go it did. Having said that, this is becoming just a staple in an Eldex. Just an absolute staple. And when we saw the finals in Utrecht in December, the Enel decks are playing this. I'm not saying every Enel deck is, playing a bazillion of them. But I'm telling you that Carmelo Buttiglieri, sorry for the pronunciation there, who was the highest ranked NL player, did play these. Generally, according to Limitless, 95% of NL decks play 2 copies of this card. And that's essentially what made this card spike. People started playing it. Ultar Shirahoshi is cool, but when people start playing it, that's when it becomes amazing. And when it's KO'd by your opponent's effect, add a card from the top of your deck to the top of your life, and it's got blocker. So essentially, you are going to use this as a blocker, because the only way for your opponent to avoid attacking into it, they attack, you block. The only way to avoid that happening is if your opponent uses an effect to KO it, but if they do, you gain a life, which they're not going to do. And obviously then, Anel, it's one of those decks where you're really trying to keep your life at a specific level. You want to make sure you don't mind going down to 0 life, because the leader puts you back up to 1, but you need to avoid those turns where your opponent can actually win the game, get you down below 0. And that's what having these blockers guarantees you can do. But you need to actually make sure the blocker works. Your opponent taking out your blockers and then attacking is how they try and win. So having a blocker that, if you take it out, gets you a life, or gets your opponent a life, yeah, that's going to be good. Shirahoshi's seen a spike in play, which means this sees a spike in price. And then the last one that's really gone up like that because of playability, all the leaders are going up, but they're still not expensive, not like that. But the other one that's really gone up here is Cavendish. It's been as low as $20. It's now up at, well, it's been as high as 42. It's now at 38. But either way, that's a pretty significant increase. And the reason for this, again, it's just playable. And Cavendish is like a ridiculous card. Cavendish is one of these cards where, as far as I'm concerned, the only reason you wouldn't play this card is because you can't play this card. Every deck that can should be playing Cavendish. I feel very confident about this. Now, on play when attacking, if your leader has a Supernova type and you've got no other Cavendish, set 2 of your Don to active. So you're putting 2 Don active every turn. It's absolutely absurd, but it only works with Supernova. So obviously you're playing a Jory Bonnie deck, green Supernova. You're absolutely going to be playing this, but most green decks aren't Supernova, so you can't play this. But I still feel extremely confident. Any green Supernova, why would you not play this in green Supernova? It's getting you 2 Don activated a turn. It's brilliant. Unless your opponent is building their deck to counter specifically Cavendish, making sure it's going down every single... But even then, when you play it, you get to activate 2 Don. So, no, I'm sorry. I just think this is a ridiculous card. So, obviously, this is going to be another one spiking up. And here's the thing about EB-01. I've got my eye on it. Because it's not like Bandai have announced a big reprint. And it's not like this is an easy set to find right now. It's becoming harder to find in the wild. Places like eBay, where anybody can go, it's spiking up in price. And I'm just telling you right now, I don't think we're done with EB-01. Which means I really need to go and pick up my Kyros leader, although I might go pick it up in Japanese, where I prefer the Japanese cards, and honestly, it'll probably be a bit cheaper again. But my point is, time is running out for EB-01, unless there's a big reprint, which could happen. So the takeaways here are, the good EB-01 singles are spiking, and EB-01 is becoming harder to find. Do with that information what you will. For now, tell me what you think about this. Tell me what your pulls were like from EB-01. Do you have these cards? Do you need these cards? What are you doing about it? Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about One Piece and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.